Welcome to Arcadia Bay Radio. I am your host, Riley, and this is my co-host, Josh.
How's it going?
And today is a very quick first episode to discuss what Arcadia Bay Radio is and why we are really, doing this. So here it goes. We're a couple of indie game developers, and we're just going to discuss indie game development and the big game development industry as a whole, and kind of giving it a different perspective as what you normally hear, which is going to be a perspective from a, more diverse world. This really kind of goes into our second point for this episode, which, again, keeping it very short. What is our stake in this? So first, I think Josh should explain his stake kind of in this conversation.
So, said before, we're both indie game developers. We're trying to be more conscious of inclusion, and not only inside the game of having different representation of everyone in games, but also in the workplace in general. Because diversity in the workplace allows different concepts, different points of view, different life experiences to be brought into the game, which become really eye-opening for other people who haven't experienced different walks of life. Everything from coming out of the closet to dealing with traumas or losing loved ones, dealing with a family member having cancer. Games are much more diverse these days, and that's because of all the different walks of life that come into them. So we need to see more of that in the workplace to bring out that representation.
And that plays into how, for better stories, better narratives, and more games that people love that are more novel and more unique stories, you need this diversity in the game industry on all levels. Indie, the big AAA, my favorite, the B-level games. But from my experience as an indie developer, as a student of the game industry, and student of just being a gamer myself, there's not a lot of diversity or representation within the game industry, and this is coming from a lifetime of just being a passionate gamer, going to college for video game design, being an indie game developer when I can, and I want to bring a more unique perspective and critique to the game industry, which is going to fall more along the lines of I'm coming into the game industry as a trans woman who is also has a lot going on from their life and isn't the typical game designer who comes from where games are developed. I'm out here on the East Coast. I have a different world, a different culture where I'm coming into it, and from what I've seen in the game industry is you get some of the most unique stories and unique perspectives when you get developers coming from really unique walks of life and backgrounds, and not from the typical areas like, Seattle or the West Coast where a lot of games are coming from. But when you see developers coming out of small countries and developing nations or the Middle East or Europe who come from, backgrounds like my own, and they try to tell their stories and the way they live their life in this unique medium we have that is game development and game design. And it's there's so much more we can understand if we all, have these shared experiences, and games is a great way to do it. So I want to see more diversity, and I'm always going to be an advocate for that. And that's why I'm doing this, to try to give a nod where it is, and then kind of say where it should exist and where it could exist, and then where it's kind of being negatively reinforced, I want to kind of point that out too and get my friend Josh's perspective on it, because he's kind of on the other side of the fence. Well, not other side of the fence from where I am, but he's
I think I'm teeter-tottering, kind of. I'm more on your side of the fence, but I can see other points of view as well where I slightly disagree on occasion.
And he also comes with a perspective of where he's never going to have experienced some of the things I have, so a lot of what I'm going to be saying is going to be new to him as well, and it's going to be a great way to get his reaction and talk with him through that and see the perspective of someone who never has had to experience this, give me their perspective and their take on it, because I don't have that insight in my life, and it's going to be enriching for me as a game designer to see that, because it's going to help me understand my audience better, because not everyone in my audience is going to be like me. God, no one in my audience is going to be like me for the most part. Like, so I need to be able to relate to that as well. So that's where we're going to kind of take it. And, well, from here, our next episode is going to be based pretty much off of the title, where the title of our podcast comes from. Arcadia Bay is the location of the fictional Blackwell Academy for the greatest game, I think, not greatest game, but one of my favorites. It's a great one, but Life is Strange. We're going to cover that next.
It's definitely your favorite, and it's an amazing game. Love Life is Strange. Don't undersell it. It's totally your favorite. And like, it's written all over your fucking face. If you saw her face right now, you'd be like, yeah, that's her favorite game. There's no denying it. So you can stay tuned to follow stay tuned to find out when and where we'll be uploading our videos. We have a YouTube page called Misfit Broadcasting, where you'll find this podcast as well as several others. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Misfit Broadcast. That's where we upload our news about when we're uploading videos and what our next titles are going to be about.
Today we will be talking about Life is Strange in a series of episodes, actually, in a breakdown and critique of the game series, starting with an overall critique of the first game. And that is going to be where we start our discussion with what I think is the single most misunderstood choice in that whole entire game series, which is, what was your final choice?
When
Josh.
I played the game, I decided to make the smart choice of saving the town. Let me hear...
Real quick. We're going to explain it for they're obviously spoilers. The game's been out for freaking how long now? And
years.
So the final choice of the game lets you make the choice you're playing as Max Caulfield. Obviously, if you're listening to this, we're assuming you've actually played Life is Strange and Life is Strange Before the Storm. So you actually know what we're talking about.
If you are listening to this and you have not played Life is Strange, then I'm kind of confused why you're here, but I'm also glad you're here.
Yeah,
welcome aboard.
Welcome. Thanks for wanting to hear what we say, but please go play it so you actually know what we're talking about. But so you as Max get the final choice to like sacrifice Chloe to save Arcadia Bay and everyone in it,
let's back up real quick. Let's back up real quick and give a synopsis to the game before people just be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" So, the game Life is Strange, as she said before, takes place as this character Max, and Max is returning to her hometown. I haven't played the game well. Riley, why don't you elaborate more? She's back in her hometown, and what's going on?
So she left her hometown like in early teenage years to go live with her parents in Seattle, and she's like one of those hipster artsy types, with a Polaroid camera, which I love. I want one so bad. My wife keeps promising me one, but so she's back at her hometown in Arcadia Bay, which is somehow in Washington, even though it doesn't really exist actually. But in this academy called Blackwell Academy, it's like a high school, I presume, for like seniors only.
I was going to say, I like that you draw the line of believability at the existence of this town.
I know, right?
That's where she puts the line of believability.
I'm going to put the line of believability there. This town doesn't exist.
Please go on.
So yes, you're Max Caulfield. You're back at your hometown for your senior year of high school at this like prestigious like art school, and you're some like photographer studying under some like crazy good like famous photographer, which is awesome that she knows a famous photographer, because I dare anyone out there to like actually know a famous photographer. And so she's studying, she's really good, and it's a small private school. She discovers she can rewind time. Her best friend from childhood, who she abandoned, gets shot in a bathroom. She rewinds time to save her. Shenanigans happens. You discover her lover's body in a junkyard. And your teacher, is a serial killer. So there's a typhoon heading towards your town, and to save it, you have to either sacrifice your childhood love or save her, and everyone dies.
I'm not trying to mansplain right now. I promise that's not what I'm doing, but you missed a massive chunk of the synopsis.
Oh, I did?
Going along with trying to find her best friend's girlfriend that they have since found, I believe, dead or think she's dead, they're unraveling a mystery of women going missing in the town that spirals out of control, which the solving of that eventually leads to the giant typhoon coming to destroy the town, which brings Riley to her point of the big choice you need to make, which is
the very last one of the series, which is, do you sacrifice Chloe or do you save her and you get out of the town, the one goal you both had all along, and you do. And I think this decision has been...
You do. You selfish person, you do. I do not.
I think this decision has been viewed under the very wrong lens by the audience for far too long, and I think it now finally needs a little more context. And I think... So we're not getting into the second game, Before the Storm, which is a precursor game to this actually storyline, which explains Chloe and Rachel Amber's relationship and what happens there, which I think gives this game a lot more context, but we're talking about this game alone in the final decision. I still can justify my final choice, which was to save Chloe and middle finger Arcadia Bay. They can all suck it because they deserve it, and I will tell you why.
Let me, in my point of view, I, unlike Riley, decided the lives of one do not outweigh the lives of the many. And not even just the fact that, she's like your best friend, but also kind of semi-becoming a love interest, I feel. At least that was my opinion by the end of the game, that you're becoming a love interest. But it just seemed so friggin' selfish throughout, like I said, throughout the game. You constantly save this girl, and I totally understand where other reviewers have made the point that fate clearly wants Chloe dead in this game, and I agree with that. But the justification of, because I know we only meet a small handful of this town. We don't meet the political figures, we don't meet the elementary school kids. There are a lot of other people who die in this town that, just because their own 3D models don't exist.
But you do. You meet those people in the
You
town.
meet a lot of
You don't meet them
shitty people.
directly. You meet them in context, and you meet them in character development through environmental storytelling and item narrative. You meet the whole town essentially, and you see the politics at play here. And real quick, I wanna jump in here, Josh, to point something out. But so you're right, 100,000% that this is totally Max and Chloe are definitely in love. Like, they are soulmates. Like, telling from I just got an eye roll
just
from
so
everyone
everyone knows,
here.
Riley just received a nice, kind eye roll from her lover. So continue.
Yeah, my lovely wife decided, just gave me a sigh. But no, in all honesty, just look at the way they talk about, Max talks about Chloe in her journal. The one thing you have access to from the very beginning to tell you about Chloe, which you have no context who she even is, but from very square one, you can actually open that journal and read her entry about her. And the same thing applies in Before the Storm. You can actually read an entry about Max in Chloe's journal before you even ever get any context of who Max is. But
So why do you feel everyone deserved to die, though?
No, real quick though, you've touched something I really want to talk about real quick, which is you just pointed out that the game and everyone in the critiques point out that fate really wants Chloe to die, which Chloe is a professed lesbian. And are you aware of the very prevailing narrative in media that is lesbians always die? Always.
I'm not.
Women always die to begin with, but queer women are 100% guaranteed to die in media for the most part. There's very few shows or any media out there that queer women live to any length in the story. And I can probably Wikipedia it right now and just pull up a never-ending list of shows where this is true, but it's a common enough occurrence that queer women point it out regularly.
It's called Bury Your Gaze.
Yeah, my wife just pointed out. My wife is sitting by the way, everyone listening. Hi, Remy. It's called Bury Your Gaze. It's it's an actual trend, and that's something I think that this narrative piece actually does a great job at pointing out. Is the story wanted to kill her, and
I was gonna say that I disagreed for a second, and then I just remembered the most recent season of Doctor Who actually just pulled that bullshit. And they brought on I don't remember if she's the first lesbian companion. She might be, but her name was Pepper Potts. Loves Pepper. No, sorry, not Pepper Potts. that is Iron Man's girlfriend. Her name is Bill Potts, and she has been my favorite companion for the first time in a long time. And understandably so, they were switching to a female doctor the following season, so I understood why they wanted to have a different companion. But once again, she didn't need the doctor in the sense of like to save her. She was very funny, very different. To use the words of the young kids, she curved a lot of guys that made advances on her in the season, but not in like a snobby, rude way like that's stereotypically portrayed. But she still didn't make it to the end of the season, and it really pissed me off because I'm like, you finally bring a character that's like very significantly different than what I'm used to for the past like 50 years worth of content in Doctor Who. And granted, they are doing better and better with those kind of representations, but I was mad that she went because it's like they kept Clara around for so long, and it doesn't matter if you know who Clara is. All you need to know is she was kept around way too long. So I definitely understand what you mean when you say that the whole bury your gaze thing. It's definitely
right.
The more I think about it too, actually, it's happened a lot on Walking Dead. Full disclosure,
He shot one through the eye with an
I'm not a big fan of that show to begin with. Like, I've been watching lately because I love the guy who plays Negan, but past that, I don't really give a crap about the show.
But yeah, so can you see in what I'm putting a flag in the ground right now and saying the like one true gay game out there is saying about this is like, hey, we're not gonna like kill. We're putting it in the player's hands for the most part to save the lesbian, like to keep her alive, to keep the love interest alive, and like that's why I think that final choice is so important and so interesting in that it's been viewed from a very, for lack of a better term, like cishet mindset for so long. Like every reviewer out there is from that perspective, and there's very few out there who are from my perspective, I take it. And,
I mean, I definitely.
I think
I definitely don't have the separate perspective of being a lesbian myself or anything like that. I'm as a straight man, but at the same time, I guess the way I see it is because I don't have that point of view. I don't see it from I can see it from the love point of view, but I also still see it from the bigger importance point of view. I guess is what kind of gets me is that I put the safety of the greater good over personal love affairs even in that scenario. But like you said, you have all this subliminal and past I guess you would say not so much just disrespect but like lack of care toward these type of characters in media. So I definitely understand where you're coming from as far as like why you would pick that. Did you feel bad at all though?
Can I say no? I didn't hesitate for a moment to save Chloe because
just wham.
Yeah, like I didn't hesitate for a second. I think the whole town deserves it. I think that whole town is a town built like, all right, don't get me wrong, there are a few characters in that town who are redeemable.
I'm just saying there was a dog in that town that you let die.
All right,
keep that in mind. You let a dog fucking die.
That dog was the
good boy.
Greatest
that
character.
Dog was a good boy.
That dog was a good boy. But for the most part, I think that a lot of those characters in that game had a lot of negative qualities, and they all, in one way or another, were kind of pushing negative stereotypes onto Max, and in turn, that's kind of like the extended bonus ending of the game you get for choosing to save the town is also like just kind of reinforcing all those negative stereotypes and kind of letting you just sit there and really understand the gravity of the situation and what happens when those like negative stereotypes are so stringently reinforced in small communities like that. Like they are in this country all over the place, especially even so in super what we think of as like liberal communities. Like she was in an art school and that whole community pretty much drove Chloe to kill herself at the end of that game. So if you remember correctly, it was Chloe at the end saying that she should die, she should be the grown-up one, she should take responsibility, she should just end it. The whole world is telling her to die.
I mean, in the defense of Blackwell, at least, the town itself is rubbish. I will not disagree with that.
Blackwell's worse.
But at the same time, they're not the same groups of people. Like, the people who live in that town, outside of the students and faculty, are not...
They are
like
all...
her douchebag
right.
stepdad is definitely
And
not a reflection of Blackwell students.
Sorry I'm trying to interrupt you and jump in. I'm just saying...
No, you're excited. I understand.
I know, yeah, I love talking about this. I'm just, But everyone in that whole town, even Chloe's own mom, condoned, like, super, like, bigoted views, for lack of, like... Everyone, for the most part, I think I can make a case for why everyone in that town pretty much deserves to be sacrificed in lieu of Chloe. And I think that's actually like a good discussion point, a way to break down this game, is to like really discuss how this game really, at the end, because I think at the end it is like a great metaphor. Like Chloe's killing herself at the end for the most part. Like she tells Max to sacrifice her. It's her. She's gonna die, and it's like literally to expose a serial killer that the whole town is just like willfully ignorant of anyway. Like all the evidence points towards like Blackwell Academy just ignoring signs of like major psychotic behavior from one of their students because of bribes and like rich families, which I hate to tell you is an actual thing that happens in small town America, and it's all too common. The victims are the LGBT community, and it's crazy that, because if you look at all the decisions and all the choices and all the story arcs of all the chapters, it shows these crazy life events that Max and Chloe have to live through, that anyone viewing this game would consider a crazy life event that is monumental, and Chloe and Max just take it in stride because it's like, yeah, that's life. This is what we live through every day. Like, try to like live one day in our footsteps, and it's nothing. And it takes a serial killer in the town with a secret lair with the rich family's benefactor supporting it.
Literally like an artsy version of the Toy Box Killer, which I found very fucking creepy.
Yeah, it takes that level of craziness in like these male characters for people to even bat an eyelash at these young girls dying who are like the gay ones in the community.
I will say that was a really fucked up part of the game, was how, because people like, because that was one thing that was definitely a noticeable portion of the game, was how the town reacted to Rachel Amber. Like, they were like all on board with her until like she got a little older and started showing that she was either coming out or starting to become or realizing that she was a lesbian. And then when she goes missing, all of a sudden, no one gives a fuck. Yeah. It's like, that's really fucked that you go, because don't they explain at the beginning that she was like an honor student and like an athlete and all this shit? Like, all American thing you can hit. Everyone loved her in the school. She was the top actor. Like, she was going places. That's what the school pretty much points out when you find evidence of her there. And all evidence points towards a community where no one cares except Chloe about Rachel Amber. Chloe's own family doesn't even care about Rachel Amber. Like, that's their daughter's like former girlfriend, which I know in the first game we still don't have the context of the second game to put Chloe and Rachel Amber's relationship in perspective, but like, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from like the first 3 times you interact with Chloe in the first game that like she and Rachel clearly had something more than just a friendship. I mean, if you're thick-skulled, then maybe you need it beaten over your head. But I think the nuance enough was there. And, like, Sergeant Dad only gives a crap about looking into, like, the religious nut and not even caring about Rachel Amber either. Like, here's a guy who has, like, the resources and free time, apparently, to spy and, like, do, like, detective work. And the stash. And, yeah, he's more concerned about stalking some poor, innocent Christian girl than, like, actually trying to figure out a real mystery at the school. Which I found super creepy. Like, why did no one call the cops on him for that? Like, yeah. Where is the law inside Arcadia Bay? That is a great question. I am the law. So, like, yeah, like, these are all amazing questions I think we're going to have to really explore, and how I'm going to, I think, finally justify to Josh that, like, Arcadia Bay deserved what they got, and Chloe and Max deserve to live happily ever after. It's like a great gay love story ending that I think is long overdue. And if you didn't choose that one, you are a monster. Well, if I'm a monster, can I be a guess I want to be like a kind of a chimera. I definitely completely understand where you came from. I mean, if I played the game again, I probably would take different choices, but I do stand by my saving the town, but I definitely more thoroughly understand why you wouldn't save the town. Like, from that point of view, it's like, why the fuck would you want to if you've experienced exactly what that game is going over, I totally understand.
Like, I just want to make this last point. We have to like pause for a few minutes. This.
Yeah.
Before we have to pause for a little while because just schedules and all that good stuff. I just want to make this one point. If you look at all the choices you have to make that are meaningful choices that actually play any kind of role in the game, narrative arc, whether or not people respond to you, it's always a choice of whether or not you're going to play into what society expects you to be and playing into who you truly are as Max. And that shows very much in the way the world around her responds to her, in the choices you get to make as a player. So I think that it's great that people who don't have this perspective will only get to experience this when they finally play that playthrough where they're not actually playing as who they are. They're playing outside their comfort zone, which is really interesting.
That's a great point. And I wish we had more time to get more thoroughly into the storyline, but unfortunately we're out of time today, so we will pick up Arcadia Bay and our dive into Life is Strange on the next episode of Arcadia Bay. I'm Josh.
I'm Riley.
Have a good one.